In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, peace be upon you. In the previous chapter, I provided background information on Surah Al-Kahf because this surah recounts the story of Dhul-Qarnayn. I detailed the events surrounding the revelation of this surah, explaining how, at one point, the Quraysh of Mecca decided to challenge the Prophet on a highly intellectual level. They asked the Jewish scholars, who were the top scholars among the Jews, to pose some questions to the Prophet. Among the questions the Jews gave to the Quraysh was one about Dhul-Qarnayn, and I have already explained all the details in the previous chapter. Today, in this chapter, I will systematically and research-oriented discuss the story of Dhul-Qarnayn, which undoubtedly is a source of great curiosity in our time. Who was Dhul-Qarnayn? Where did he see the sun setting in a muddy spring? How did he see people unable to protect themselves from the sun? And where is the wall he built? Why can't we see this wall today? Perhaps the most intriguing question of this entire journey is, who are Gog and Magog? In the last chapter, I narrated the entire story of Dhul-Qarnayn exactly as it is mentioned in the Quran, word for word. Before we officially begin the discussion on this event, I want to first present this story in simple terms so you understand what actually happened. And then we will set some terminologies as we will use them frequently throughout the series. Dhul-Qarnayn was granted power and resources by Allah. He began a journey until he reached a place where the sun appeared to set in a muddy spring. There, Dhul-Qarnayn saw no people, and Allah gave him the choice to punish them or treat them kindly. Dhul-Qarnayn said he would punish those who did wrong and leave the others in ease, both with him and with Allah. Dhul-Qarnayn then embarked on another journey and reached a place where the sun rises. Here, he observed that there was no barrier between the sun and the people, and they could not protect themselves from it. On his third journey, Dhul-Qarnayn reached a place between two barriers and found some people who could barely communicate with him. They complained about the disturbances caused by Gog and Magog and offered him resources to build a barrier. Dhul-Qarnayn refused their resources, saying what Allah had given him was better. He agreed to help them with his power and manpower, and he constructed a barrier of iron sheets and molten copper. Dhul-Qarnayn built the barrier so strong that Gog and Magog could neither penetrate nor climb over it. However, he said this barrier was a mercy from Allah and would eventually be broken when Allah's promise comes, allowing Gog and Magog to break free. Having presented the story in simple terms, let's address our questions. The first question is, who was Dhul-Qarnayn? Various theories exist about his identity. Some say he was Alexander the Great, while others believe he was Cyrus the Great. I will discuss these names and more in detail. The name Dhul-Qarnayn means the two-horned one. In Arabic, Qarn can mean horn, and some scholars say Dhul-Qarnayn's name comes from wearing a helmet with two horns. Another meaning of Qarn is century, leading some to think Dhul-Qarnayn lived for 2 centuries. Others suggest that the name reflects his journey from one end of the world to the other, thus the 2 ages. Another theory is that Dhul-Qarnayn's name refers to 2 long locks of hair hanging from his head. One well-known theory is that Dhul-Qarnayn was Alexander the Great. This theory is popular, and many still refer to him as Dhul-Qarnayn Alexander. Alexander the Great, who lived about 2,300 years ago, is believed by some to be Dhul-Qarnayn, due to his travels from west to east, similar to Dhul-Qarnayn's journey. Additionally, Alexander built a barrier in the Caucasus Mountains to keep the Scythians, who lived in the mountains, away from the civilized world. This barrier, known as the Gates of Alexander, is mentioned in Greek texts, including Syria and Legends, which was written about 300 years before the Prophet Muhammad. In this text, Alexander encounters a poisonous sea in the west, similar to how Dhul-Qarnayn saw the sun setting in a muddy spring. Alexander also had 2 horns on his head, which some link to the name Dhul-Qarnayn. However, many scholars, including Ibn Kathir, Ibn Taymiyyah, and Nasir al-Din al-Albani, argue that Alexander the Great cannot be Dhul-Qarnayn. The Quranic Dhul-Qarnayn was a monotheist, believed in one God, and attributed his achievements solely to Allah. Alexander, on the other hand, was a polytheist who was considered a son of Zeus by the Greeks. The book, Alexander's Romances, does not call Alexander Dhul-Qarnayn and contains fabricated elements unrelated to Alexander's real life. Additionally, the historical and biographical details of Alexander make it unlikely he was Dhul-Qarnayn. There is another king who is widely believed by Muslims to be Dhul-Qarnayn, and I will discuss him in the next episode. Goodbye.